So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, Sarah. It's great to be part of your show. Looking forward to the chat.
I am so excited to have you here. I mean, I have a tech business in the maritime space. So I know, firsthand the huge challenges that the industry is facing daily, especially in light of COVID and everything that's happened in the last 18 months. So I can really see all the benefits, the kinds of solutions One Stop are delivering. So I'm really excited to find out some more. So let's just dive in. Why don't you give us a broad overview of what One Stop does and how do you help your customers?
Yeah, I joined MyStop back in 2005 when it was pretty much a startup. And being someone of a tech background, I always saw technology as a problem solver. So, and then, when I joined OneStop, we were looking at, you know, port environments and how do you improve the challenges that exist in port environments. And the key word that I sort of talk to people about that best describes port environment is chaos. Um, when I think of chaos, it's it still exists in some port environments around the world. And when we first started at One Stop in '05, that chaos existed where transport operators, terminal operators, freight forwarders, all using paper, phone, faxes to communicate. If something happened, then all hell breaks loose because no one knows what to do next. So that ultimately sort of put us in the center of what could we do to help improve that chaotic environment so that people are making better decisions with moving their cargo. So once that was basically born out of trying to work with those key stakeholders with moving
Yeah.
that, ultimately moving cargo more efficiently. We've managed to sort of build a platform that is a cargo logistics a collaboration platform that helps the orchestration and better management of information, but also transactions that happen from business to business, so that people can better move that cargo more efficiently. We've been able to sort of roll out our platform across all ports in Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, and also in Peru. And
Nice.
one of the key things in all of this is we've been able to sort of address the need of what importers and exporters want. And we think that's all about certainty and reliability of when am I going to
Yep.
get those goods to my warehouse or to my customer. And whilst we've done a great job already doing that, there's so much more to do.
So much more. And if we've seen anything, I mean, everybody just wants to hear those words. How do we get back to a more stable environment? How are we going to get to more predictability? How do we help those ports and support those ports to help cargo to move more efficiently? So I think you are singing the tune for everybody. And then you used one of my favorite words, which is collaboration. So I already know that you and I are going to get along great during this discussion. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time in one show to get to every one of your products. And I really wish we did because you have an impressive suite of solutions. But broadly, they're broken down into operations, tracking, reporting, security, and payment. So, do you want to give us a bit of a detail on each of those sectors and maybe a quick rundown of the products that they encompass?
Yeah, it's always best to start with what are we trying to do again, and
Yeah.
we're trying to improve that predictability for an importer and an exporter. And despite everyone's best plan in the world, generally something happens. And when that something happens, um, all plans go out the window. And then for us, it's all about how do people make that next best decision so that they can,
Mhm.
maximize their assets in terms of, what job am I going to do next? How am I going to fill my truck with a backload and so forth? So our, our, our core focus, and you touched on the collaboration aspect, we don't see ourselves as purely a product, an operating system for one operator. We're seen as the glue connecting those operators so that information is flowing between business to business, and there's a transaction taking place digitally. So a lot of what's taking place, and if I just focus on the port environment for now, whether it's customs clearing some cargo, duties are being paid by a freight forwarder for the cargo, security clearances that people can access our ports, manifesting is taking place, and a booking is taking place. We sort of bring it all together with uh, um, a lot of the service offerings that we do, so that the capacity from a terminal operator, they're moving boxes in and out of their port as quickly as possible. And from a transport operator's perspective, they're actually maximizing the asset and planning their jobs. And then ultimately, the importer and exporter knows, hey, I'm going to get my cargo in 2 days' time. So a lot of those services are helping facilitate that around payments, bookings, security, data exchange, and manifesting. And they're the sort of key offerings that are in the platform.
Yeah, and it's so true. There's so many different stakeholders, right? Just in that one environment, just in that one part of a shipment. Most people
Yeah,
don't realize how many different people are doing so many different things and need to be talking, right? They need to be collaborating. They need to understand and know where everybody is at in their task, right? Of that part of the supply chain. So, how do your tools work then? Do they integrate with existing customer systems? Are they separate platforms? Or, what do these interfaces look and feel like for the customer?
yeah. The crux and the main thing that is the focus of what we try and do is we're trying to allow operators, be it large or small, people that have systems to people who have no systems. Um, how do you get the most bang for dollar for each of those actors? And ultimately, a big operator wants to use their own operating system. So ours, our platform is the glue. It connects business to business through EDI or APIs or XML, so that each operator is still operating in one system, but knowing they're getting live information and updated and valuable information. So when we think about the supply chain and the diversity of sophistication, then you need to cater for all parts of that. So,
Mhm.
so in Australia alone, for example, we've been able to save the community in excess of $10 billion in productivity
Wow.
savings during this time of just allowing data to be exchanged more efficiently, to the point that people know what box is arriving for what vessel at what time, so that they can have automatic gates opening or closing at a specific time, so that people are eliminating the wastage. Queue times used to be six hour queue times down the ports back in '05. Now they're eliminated. So all this has a cascading effect to everyone in the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. We need your solution here in Toronto or in New York ASAP. I saw a post the other day from a really good friend of mine who's a shipper, and he was talking about the lineups and how if a driver isn't given the right information for them to be able to potentially extend his pickup time so that there's no demurrage charges, if he doesn't get that particular, I think it's a piece of paper when he's lined up and is turned away, then they don't
Yeah,
get an extension and you have to pay demurrage right away. And so not only are we dealing with lines, but we're also dealing with paper that could save a shipper so much money. And if
yeah,
these things aren't working into alignment, there's a lot of extra charges that are going out the door for not only that shipper, but also that trucker, and so much time that can be saved. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because there's so much time wasted and so much pollution going in the air from those truckers lining up at trying to get their freight.
yeah. Totally agree. That was the core purpose of why we set up most of those problem-solving solutions. Because yeah, at the end of the day, people can do more with their truck rather than sit in a queue trying
Yes.
to get clearance of paperwork that potentially could be wrong. So a
Yeah.
lot of that. takes place days before now, so that it's very rare that we ever see a queue now because all the paperwork's done days before. It's all cleared before, so that an automated gate just opens up when that truck
Mhm.
arrives, and they don't queue. They're turning around within 30 minutes of
Wow.
driving in, picking up, and leaving.
Well, and I think the other thing that that could potentially solve is the driver shortage as well. Because I think if we make things more efficient and not so frustrating for the driver, I think we'll be
Yeah.
able to retain or at least gain more drivers into the system. So that brings me to my next point. One Stop, you have four key pillars. So I was doing my research and I found that you use these to help you move forward to the goal of an enhanced global port community, which is efficiency, collaboration, which I love, integration, and innovation. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with you because those are some key points that are coming up over and over again in a lot of my conversations, particularly over the last year or so. So, why do you think these pillars are so important and what makes them such a potent combination?
Yeah, they're actually so critical to the way we do business because like I said at the start, we don't focus purely on an operating system for one particular business. We're trying to connect everyone. So the only way you can connect the benefits to person A to person B is by understanding what they need. So
Right.
key questions is always to go, what do I need from you and what do you need from me? And that's where the collaboration takes place because, we all want the holistic, efficient supply chains. You've got to break it down all the way down to the interaction between the many middlemen or middle people orchestrating that cargo. So collaboration for us is key. That collaboration drives the thought of what data do I need to share with you, because that
Mhm.
data allows me to work out what capacity I have and what capacity I'm going to need so that I can better manage my workload. So the integration comes in from there. So once we establish what we want from each other, we integrate that through data and information that exchange. And for me, the only way you're innovating is by using data to make better, more informed, predicted decisions. So, you know, if you put those three together, by default, you're going to get efficiency. And
Yep.
there's going to be efficiency where you're trying to plan your day, and that's a planned efficiency versus when chaos hits, a disruption occurs, or there's congestion, or a vessel gets rerouted. What decisions can I make based on the information that's in front of me, so I can make that next best decision? That's driving us, and I think that's what everyone needs to be driven by around you know solving a holistic supply chain one bit at a time.
Yeah, I love that. And, so many people struggle to get the data that they need. Right? Sometimes
Yeah.
from the steamship lines themselves, sometimes from the ports themselves. And I think in this day and age, people are asking more questions, right? They're wondering why I can't get the data that I need to be able to make the decisions that I need to make for my business. With everything that we have out there, with all of the technology that we have out there, why am I still struggling? And of course, port congestion has been one of the biggest challenges shared by ports and terminals around the world. Throw COVID in on top of that, and we've seen some shocking scenes in the last 18 months. I mean, the number of vessels that were backed up in the port of LA and Long Beach, there's still a queue. But it's been cleaned up a lot. So, what have you guys observed from your perspective? Talking to your customers, talking to the ports, what have you seen? What have you heard? And how can, one stop solution contribute to solving that very real issue of port congestion?
Yeah. No, it's definitely shocking scenes in terms of what's been happening in the last sort of 18 months. Um, I think, a lot of these challenges have been around for decades. They've
Right.
probably been highlighted even further through this pandemic and through COVID because, you know, people are sort of shopping more. We're trying to get more cargo. There was factories shut down in China at one point. So I think we're playing catch up, and and think of the global supply chain as a sort of living organism. As soon as one part of it gets disrupted, the rest of it just starts to become congestion. Not only in LA, but also the Suez Canal was a good graphical
Mhm.
image that showed us how one vessel ended up. It was meant to be a shortcut going from
Right.
Europe through to Asia. That ended up being the longest shortcut ever, and we saw images of vessels being banked back up to 400 odd vessels. So whilst I don't believe we can solve everything at one stop, what we can do is once cargo hits our ports, we know that we are giving the operators, they're being the stakeholders, being transport, freight forwarders, and so forth, the right tools to be able to move that cargo and change what they need to do in a digital electronic way, so that they're making a next best decision more effectively. Because ultimately, the key players and that sets the good operators from the not so good is how they're using data to make their next better decision and manage disruption that's taking place. So in those situations, whilst there may be vessels being banked out at sea, once it hits the ground, we're still seeing the fact that through our service offering and through our coordination platform, people are still getting their cargo, within 2 days into their warehouse.
Mhm.
So those sort of things are still possible, and they're the things we'll continue to sort of improve so that people are making those decisions once cargo hits the ground.
Yeah, so disruption will happen, but it's what do you have in place to help um make not only better decisions but faster decisions, right? Because I think that's
Yeah.
also a key is how do you make faster decisions when the disruption hits, but also when that disruption wanes or you're able to get that vessel into port, how fast can you turn that over, which is going to be that domino effect of getting vessels in quicker as well, which is going to eliminate that congestion that much quicker. And so I think that that's key. And when you were talking about better decisions, it just came to me, faster decisions are also really critical to supply chains these days. And if each stakeholder in that chain and in that supply chain can make better, faster decisions, it's going to just make everything along that line that much more efficient. And so, congestion is just one part of it, right? We've seen all sorts of things. But I was watching Freightened a few weeks ago, and it highlighted that global shipping is responsible for a massive 4% of Earth's greenhouse gas emissions, and that it'll take 30 years just to modernize the ships that contribute to that figure. That to me is way too long and very, very, very scary. So, is that why those four pillars and the aim of achieving a global community is so important to One Stop? I mean, I mentioned it before. If we increase that efficiency and trucks are not just sitting there idling, that is also going to help with this. But I think in order for us to solve some of these big challenges, especially one like this, we have to do that through collaboration. So I can already see how your pillar of collaboration obviously goes towards this. But what are your thoughts on this, and how important is this? And do you keep this at the forefront of your mind to really be able to help make an impact in this way?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Like, I think we all have a role to play, and we all have a role to sort of keep our gases down, so that we're providing a more pleasant environment for everyone. And what the cornerstone of efficiency for us is all about exactly that. We have big trucks, we have ships, we have warehouses and terminal operators that are becoming automated, and there's a lot of power being used and a lot of energy being exerted by 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 actors in the supply chain trying to move cargo. So if we're taking one piece at a time by trying to make sure that each operator has an asset and they're getting the maximum utilization of it rather than it just running empty through our streets, and exerting more unnecessary emissions into our environment, then that's sort of a failure upon us. So,
Mhm.
so in essence, our service offering is what everyone wants to achieve. They all want to achieve efficiency, but they struggle to do that because of the coordination aspect. And the coordination
Mhm.
aspect is really coming through that collaboration. It's coming through data sharing. And through data sharing, people are making the most informed and hopefully the fastest decision based on that information. So that, I'll take one example where truck operators used to have 10 trucks for 10 container pickups. Now they only use about four because they can
Right.
better manage the amount of containers they can take on one truck, let alone knowing that you can do three jobs per truck in one day rather than it used to be one. So, so they're the sort of things that are slowly decreasing these emissions that are unnecessary for our environment. And I think we all need to contribute to that. We can't wait for for these automated vessels to come in play. We've got to start doing something now. And I think this is our role in terms of what we're already doing.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that you're keeping it top of mind, right? Because I think like you said, it's everybody's job. Everybody has a role to play in this, whether it's small, whether it's big. I mean, who knows? And I think the more that we can be intentional and mindful about what we're doing in our own companies and how we can contribute or help even decrease some of that. I was talking about the truckers being in line, but of course, there's vessels in line as well when there's port congestion. And so, if we can eliminate some of that and we can make things more efficient, get those containers off that much faster, then the truckers won't be lining up for that long and the vessels won't be lining up. And we can definitely help to reduce some of those emissions as well. So, I love the fact that you guys are already thinking about that.
Yeah.
So, we've already talked about how much ground One Stop covers. So, do you have an ideal customer? Right? We've talked about terminal operators, we've talked about ports, we've talked about importers and exporters. So, I'd love to get an idea from you for our audience as to who your ideal customer is and if there's a particular size business that you're best placed to help, or are you looking to integrate your solutions everywhere?
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you two perspectives here. For the environments that we're already in, being Australia and so forth, um, we're, we're improving the productivity around the port interface, transport to terminals, but we're extending that into delivering the container to customers, taking it to depots. They're probably the ideal customers where we're trying to digitize that whole end-to-end visibility so that ultimately each operator can see that data flow and make better utilization decisions. But if I go into a port environment that we're not in, our ideal customer of where we like to start is at the terminal interface. So our terminal operators are the key congestion point for most ports, and that's where the opportunity for us to sort of improve the interface, eliminate those truck queues, better manage the space down our port environments, and then the byproducts of that start to come once the industry start to see, hey, I can use these tools to better manage my business, and that's where it starts to extend. So you know, the main customers are always saying, if I can use data to make my life easier and make more informed, smarter decisions, then that's our ideal customers.
Awesome, awesome. I think I might have some introductions for you. But we're coming to one of my favorite parts of the discussion because I want you to paint me a picture, right? And bring everything that we've talked about to life. Talk us through a challenge that a customer has come to you with. Talk to us about the solution that you provided, and then talk to us about the impact, the ROI of your solution to that customer.
Yeah. I think the best example here would be our opportunity of back in 2014. The city of Manila in the Philippines pretty much ground to a halt, where cargo could not move in and out of the ports, to the point that the mayor of Manila put a truck ban. So basically said no trucks were allowed on our roads, and if anyone's been in Manila, that it takes about half an hour to travel 1 kilometre. So
Wow.
it's really congested. And then the port sits right next to the city of Manila. So you can imagine, a port that does over 3 million boxes a year. You can just see if there's no trucks moving cargo in to their customers, then the ports are just building up to the point that containers were sitting at the port for over 20 days. So at that time, it was so bad we came in, and the other thing to note just before then is they used to have a truck marshalling area which had 400 plus trucks. They used to just sit there waiting a minimum of 15 to 30 odd hours, just sitting
What?
there waiting to pick up one box. Yeah, they would sleep there. They would have their families come down to visit. So it was actually really bad and pretty sad, actually. So it was just this marshalling area just was waiting for trucks to go into the port. So when we sort of went in with our platform and they were going to use one of the services being our main vehicle booking system, which created the dynamic of you only come for a time slot and a container, and I know who you are and at what time, and I know I'm going to service you within an expected time frame. So so when we implemented that booking system in 2015, it completely just changed the whole economy in the Philippines, where
Wow.
cargo started to move. And allowing cargo to move, it not only saved the port can start to bring in the vessels that started queuing up because the port environment was completely congested. To the transport operators, like if you look at, within 3 months, that that environment where the truck marshalling area, there's no more trucks waiting. People just only jumped in their truck and came down the port in the time frame that they were expected to come down, and they knew they were going to get service within an hour, for example. It's a lot less in other port environments, 30 minutes, but it got to 30 odd hours down to almost an hour. So
Wow.
that's a real life example of not only a social impact where people were living in their trucks,
Mhm.
but also the economy started to move as a result of rolling out the platform.
Amazing. See, I love that part of this conversation because we really get an idea, right, on the ground of the impact that your solution is really creating and just thinking about the life that you were able to give back to those truckers and their families. That is huge, and that's got to
Yeah,
have made you guys feel pretty special.
that's right. Certainly, that was the best part about it.
So now, sometimes my guests get a little uncomfortable if I ask this question, but there's no need to get uncomfortable. I'm not asking you to have a crystal ball, but I know that One Stop does pride itself on innovation. And so I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on the future of the industry. What developments, what new technologies or breakthroughs do you think that we could expect over the next couple of years?
Yeah, th- this space technology, for me, technology has never been the inhibitor. But in saying that, there's so much investment going in to logistics startups. I think the number I read was $28 billion,
Whew.
and that's been spent out of Silicon Valley and all these different places. And whilst a lot of them are in their infancies, I can see, drone technology, just-in-time delivery, and artificial intelligence all being uh, great technologies that can solve challenges within our supply chain. And whilst I think a lot of the investments has been on sort of almost last mile delivery, um, there's certainly opportunity across the whole supply chain
Mhm.
to utilize these technologies. But I think that when they are going to get the time when they're going to succeed is when there's a real focus on collaborating and seeing what each party is actually getting out of that opportunity. Because if you have a connected supply chain, that's when it's going to start to work.
That's when everybody wins. I love that you said that. I really did. So, finally, we're going to end off this discussion with the future of One Stop. What does that look like? What can we expect to see from you in the future?
Yeah. So, I touched quite a bit on the port interface. So, what our goal is to follow that containerized box from port all the way to customer, and then from customer all the way back out to the port. So, a lot of what we're doing is we're digitizing the our mantra is all about digitize, automate, and then optimize. And if you're
Okay.
digitizing, um, be it the big guys or even the small guys that have nothing, because sometimes we're competing still against pen and paper. So, if we're digitizing every single transaction, then each operator will start to have the opportunity where they can automate what they're trying to do. And by doing that, then we can start to share that information so that people have better opportunity of saying, okay, I've just delivered this box from the port all the way out west. And as soon as I drop that off, I can see now through the data sharing, I have an opportunity to pick something up, 3 kilometers away, rather than go back to my depot and just wait there
Right.
unnecessarily. So that's the sort of ecosystem we're trying to create of opportunity for everyone in terms of digitizing, and that's where AI comes in. So that people are sort of we're leveraging that data to present the next best suggestion to each of our customers so that they can decide for themselves if that's something that they want to take on board, which helps maximize their asset, maximize their opportunities to move cargo more efficiently and do more with less.
Well, I cannot wait. I am really excited to see where you guys go next. I'm really excited at what you're doing right now and how you're helping the ports. And I'm sure that a lot of the people in the audience are really happy to hear that as well. And I can't wait to see what other ports you get on board as well. I really enjoyed that conversation. I mean, as I mentioned it already, I work in this space. And although it can be quite exciting, no day is the same, right? It can be a bit of a tough ride. And so seeing the innovations that are being so proactively driven by companies like One Stop really excites me and gives me great hope, right? That we're
Yeah.
going to be able to solve some of our key challenges and improve some efficiency, improve sustainability, and really ensure that we have a robust global port community for the future. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Thank you so much for giving us that deep dive into what you're doing at One Stop, what it means for the industry, and how more ports and more shippers can get involved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And love talking to you. And yes, let's continue to collaborate.